Ever set a goal? One that felt like, phew, like climbing a mountain, like writing a whole book.
Oh, I hear you. That initial excitement can fade so quickly.
It really can. And then staying motivated, feels impossible. But what if we reframed it?
Reframed it? How do you mean?
This deep dive, it's like having a motivation coach right here. We're drawing from this Mindset Matters script, and let me tell you, it's packed with practical strategies for building that stay motivated muscle.
I like this script too. It starts by tackling a big misconception about motivation.
Oh, tell me about it. I used to think it was like always being on, like those entrepreneurs you see, buzzing with energy 24/7.
Right, but this script, it points out how that's actually setting us up for failure.
Exactly, it's not sustainable.
It's about building sustainable habits, not chasing some mythical state of constant excitement.
Okay, so then what is motivation really, if it's not this non-stop energy thing?
This script, it compares motivation to a muscle.
A muscle, I like
It
that.
needs to be trained, exercised, and yes, even rested.
So you wouldn't expect to bench press a car on your first trip to the gym, right? You gotta train.
Exactly. And just like you wouldn't train for a marathon by sitting on the couch, you can't expect to achieve big goals without putting in the work.
So where do we start with this whole motivation workout then? Got any pointers from the script?
This is where setting clear, achievable goals comes in. The script really stresses that.
Okay, love that in theory, but write a 300-page book. That's not exactly a light jog, right?
And that's precisely where so many people get tripped up. It's overwhelming to look at the big picture.
So true, you get paralyzed just thinking about it.
But what if, instead of 300 pages, you focused on just 1 page a day? Or even just a paragraph?
Okay, yeah, I can get behind that. Suddenly it feels doable.
And that's the whole point. Those small wins, they create a sense of accomplishment, which in turn fuels motivation.
It's like those dopamine hits you get from checking things off a to-do list, but amplified because they're pushing you towards something bigger.
Yes. And speaking of those small wins, the script emphasizes the importance of actually celebrating them. They're not just check marks. They're proof that you're moving in the right direction.
I love that. Celebrating the journey, not just the destination. It's not just about that final goal, it's about recognizing how far you've come.
Absolutely. And this is where connecting to your why comes into play.
Oh yes, that deeper meaning behind it all. Tell me more about this why thing.
It's about understanding the profound personal reason you're chasing this goal in the first place.
So it's not just about wanting to, say, learn a new language, but about why that matters to you.
Right. Maybe it's about connecting with your heritage or finally having that conversation with your grandparents. It's personal.
And when things get tough, you can tap back into that why, right? Reminding yourself why you started in the first place.
Exactly, and that's a powerful motivator.
So we've got these crystal clear goals, we're super tapped into our why, but like what's next? What else can we do to stay motivated?
Okay, so this is where the Mindset Matters script, it throws in this really interesting idea. See what you think. It suggests that routine, like having a routine, could be even more powerful than motivation itself.
Whoa, hold on. More powerful than motivation. Tell me more about this.
It's like, imagine you've got this task, right?
Oh.
But the motivation is gone. You're just not feeling it.
Oh, I know that feeling all too well. It's like my motivation just took a vacation or something.
Exactly. And you're sitting there waiting for that spark to come back, but it's just not happening. But here's the thing. What if, instead of waiting for inspiration, you've got this routine set up, like a designated time and place where you always do that specific task?
Interesting. So it's less about feeling it, more about just doing it.
It's about taking the emotion out of the equation.
Yeah.
This script, it uses the example of elite athletes, you know.
Right.
They don't wake up every single day like, yeah, I'm going to go train super hard. They might not always feel like it, but they do it anyway because it's ingrained in their routine. It's just what they do.
It's like that saying, right? Discipline over motivation. It's about showing up consistently, even when you don't feel like it, because you have that routine to fall back on.
Exactly. And the more you do it, the more automatic it becomes.
Yeah.
You're not relying on your willpower. You're relying on this system that you've built. Remember those small wins, those dopamine hits that we were talking about?
Yeah. They feel good.
Sticking to your routine, even when it's tough, even when you're not feeling it, that in itself is a huge win. And it feeds that cycle of accomplishment, which then fuels your motivation, and it just keeps going.
So it's like, by having that routine, you're basically guaranteeing yourself a win, even if it's a small one, and that just kind of snowballs into bigger wins. I like it. It's very strategic.
It is. And this is where the Mindset Matters script, it brings up this other really crucial point that I think ties in perfectly. It talks about the impact our environment has on our motivation.
Oh yeah, the environment. Big one. I know I get way more done in a clean, organized space. Like if my desk is a mess, my motivation is out the window.
Absolutely. And the script really emphasizes this idea that our surroundings, even if we don't realize it, they play a huge role in shaping our mindset. It's like, think about it.
It really is amazing, how much our environment affects us. It's like we're designing our own little motivation zones. But how do we actually do that? Make those positive changes?
Okay, so think of it this way, like surrounding yourself with negativity. That's like trying to run a marathon, but you're carrying around like a backpack full of rocks.
Oh, ouch, yeah. I can only imagine how much harder that would be. Talk about a motivation killer.
It's just weighing you down.
Mhm.
And this script, it really highlights how important it is to surround ourselves with people who lift us up, the cheerleaders in our lives, the ones who believe in us, believe in our goals, and remind us of our strengths, especially when we're doubting ourselves.
Oh, 100%. I used to have this friend, and every time I'd get excited about a new project, he'd immediately point out all the reasons it wouldn't work.
Oh.
Let's just say it wasn't exactly motivating.
It's tough. We've all been there. But this script, it reminds us that we have the power to choose who we let into our inner circle. And it encourages us to be mindful of the messages we're taking in too. It's not just about the people, it's also about like what we're reading, watching, listening to.
It's like that saying, you are what you eat, but for our minds.
Exactly. So if you're constantly bombarded with negativity, it's going to be really hard to stay motivated. But if you're intentional about filling your life with positive, inspiring stuff, it can make a world of difference.
Makes sense. So less doom scrolling, more motivational podcasts, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Even small doses of positivity can be so powerful. Whether it's listening to an uplifting podcast, reading a book that inspires you, or just like spending time in nature. All of that can help shift your perspective and reignite that inner spark.
Love it. Got to get that spark back. This whole conversation is making me think about a time when I was working on this huge project. I was feeling so burnt out. I decided to take a break, spend a weekend hiking in the mountains, just being surrounded by nature, It totally reset my mind. It was like hitting the refresh button.
There you go. And that brings us to the final strategy that this Mindset Matters script talks about, the power of rest. Because it's so easy, right, to fall into that trap of thinking we need to be on all the time. Always hustling, always pushing towards that finish line.
Oh, hustle culture, right.
Yeah.
I've definitely been sucked into that mentality before. It's exhausting.
It really is. And this script really emphasizes that rest isn't the opposite of productivity. It's actually crucial for it. It's like hitting the reset button so you can come back even stronger.
So it's not about being lazy, it's about being strategic.
Exactly. And that means building in time for rest and rejuvenation, whether that's scheduling an actual downtime or just finding little pockets of peace throughout your day.
So we've covered so much ground in this deep dive. We talked about setting those crystal clear, achievable goals, connecting to our why, embracing the power of routine, celebrating those small wins along the way, designing a supportive environment, and of course, prioritizing rest. It's like we've created a whole toolkit for building unshakable motivation.
I like that, a motivation toolkit. And what's so great about all these strategies is that they work together. They create this really amazing feedback loop. Remember, it's not about being a perfectly motivated machine 24/7. It's about building a sustainable system that supports you on your journey, whatever that journey might be.
And that's what it's all about, building that sustainable system. So as we wrap up here, if there was one thing, just one thing you want our listeners to take away from this whole deep dive, what would it be?
I would say this, really take some time to reflect on your why, that driving force behind your goals. Ask yourself, how can I connect with that purpose more deeply in my everyday life? Because that's where real lasting motivation comes from. It's about finding meaning in what you do. It's about feeling that sense of purpose, even on the tough days.
Powerful stuff. I love it. So there you have it. No magic formulas, just practical strategies, a little soul searching, and a whole lot of self-compassion. Here's to unlocking that unstoppable, motivated version of yourself.